As the United States now says it is allowing India to keep buying Russian oil amid the war in the Middle East, Iran has reacted sharply. Iran mocked Donald Trump's apparent U-turn on Russian oil, saying the US first tried bullying countries and is now effectively begging them. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi also lashed out at European nations, accusing them of supporting an illegal war against Iran. Araghchi, a key minister under Mujtaba Khamenei's leadership, exposed what Tehran sees as Trump's panicked moves as the Hormuz war escalates. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi on March 14 openly mocked the United States over what he described as a sudden and humiliating U-turn on Russian oil policy amid mounting global energy pressure. Araghchi claimed that Washington is now effectively begging India and other countries to keep purchasing Russian crude oil, arguing that the US position has shifted dramatically under the weight of market realities. The Iranian foreign minister also took aim at Europe, accusing European powers of backing what he called an illegal war against Iran while simultaneously preaching rules and international norms. Abbas Araghchi said, and I quote, "The US spent months on bullying India into ending oil imports from Russia. After 2 weeks of war with Iran, White House is now begging the world, including India, to buy Russian crude. Europe thought backing illegal war on Iran would win US support against Russia. Pathetic." Unquote. Araghchi's remarks came after the United States signaled that it is temporarily allowing India to continue buying Russian oil, a move that has triggered fresh debate over Washington's credibility and consistency. The US decision came as pressure intensified on global oil markets due to disruptions and fears linked to the Strait of Hormuz blockade, which has sharply raised concerns over supply security. However, India never officially confirmed that it had stopped purchasing Russian oil as part of any trade arrangement, leaving questions over the actual extent of Washington's leverage unanswered.
India's energy security or energy sourcing is concerned, the government has stated publicly on several occasions, including me here, that ensuring the energy security of 1.4 billion Indians is the supreme priority of the government. Diversifying our energy sourcing in keeping with objective market conditions and evolving international dynamics is at the core of our strategy to ensure this. All of India's decisions are taken and will be taken with this in mind.
Meanwhile, Iran has allowed 2 Indian-flagged LPG carriers to sail through Hormuz, a significant development at a time when shipping through the strategic waterway remains under extraordinary strain. Iranian officials confirmed the move on March 13, suggesting that the decision was made even as India faced growing concerns over cooking gas crisis and urgent supply requirements. The vessels have been permitted to move through the Strait of Hormuz, a source told Hindustan Times, indicating that Tehran had given specific clearance for the passage of the Indian ships. The move came only hours after Prime Minister Narendra Modi held a phone conversation with Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian, adding to speculation that direct diplomacy played a key role. On March 13, Iran's ambassador to India also publicly spoke about Tehran granting safe passage to ships, reinforcing the message that Iran was prepared to make selective maritime concessions.
Are you saying that India will get safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz?
What?
India will get safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz?
Yes, you can see that the future, and I think that after 2 or 3 hours.
But
yeah.
you said some good news in 1 to 3 days. You said something.
Yeah. Because we believe that. We believe that Iran and India are friends.
So you believe some good news?
No. We have common interest. We have common faith. And I, as ambassador in India, Iran in India, I said to you that government of India in this situation after the war help us and in different fields. Thank you.
A day earlier, on March 12, the US Treasury Department announced a 1-month waiver on sanctions related to Russian oil, marking a notable shift in Washington's posture under market pressure. Germany, France, and the United Kingdom were reportedly hesitant about the US decision to provide Russia with even temporary sanctions relief, reflecting unease among Washington's European allies. Despite resistance and pushback from key partners, Trump moved ahead and temporarily eased the Russia-related sanctions anyway, underlining the urgency of the energy situation facing the West. Many in Europe are seen as opposing such a step because they believe any sanctions relief would strengthen Russia's financial position and further boost its war chest. Meanwhile, a spokesperson for the European Commission hit back at the US decision to lift sanctions, exposing fresh transatlantic divisions over how far the West should go to stabilise oil markets.
With the Financial Times, Kaya Kala said, I quote, the EU is actively trying to change the dynamic, unquote, in the war in Iran by exploring ways to restart shipping through the Strait of Hormuz. So my question would be, how is the EU trying to change the dynamic? And secondly, does this also involve maybe to send a number of multiple warships that are already in the Eastern Mediterranean to, I don't know, protect oil vessels and safe passage? Thank you.
Anwar, what can you tell us about this?
Yes, indeed. We are closely engaged with our partners in the Gulf and in the Middle East to limit the impact of the military escalation. Why? Because the security of the Strait of Hormuz and the Gulf region is a priority to us. We, as EU, remain committed to help safeguard maritime routes and ensure the uninterrupted flow of energy and goods. This is why we have our maritime operations, Atalante and Aspides, in the region to continue delivering their protection tasks and monitor the situation closely. Now, as European navies are increasing their presence in the region, we will work to ensure that all efforts remain fully complementary. And I will leave it there. We have a Foreign Affairs Council on Monday.
I want to know the view, or any reaction about the decision of the United States to erase the sanctions on Russian oil on the sea. Thanks.
Thanks for the question. We understand that the exception the U.S. has granted is limited in time and in scope to vessels already at sea. And of course, I would encourage you to contact our counterparts in the U.S. if you have further questions regarding the measures they've put in place. The Commission remains convinced that the oil price cap and our sanctions against Russia are well targeted, and they remain in place also in the current situation of volatility on oil markets. The oil price cap has been effective in reducing Russian oil export revenues while maintaining the stability of oil markets. And Russian export volumes have remained broadly stable. And Russia should absolutely not benefit from the war on Iran.
Let me just complement to what Siobhan just said with something that the President von der Leyen said in very, very clear terms this week. It is not the time to relax sanctions on Russia. And just to put it also in perspective, Russia has been earning, we're informed, $150 million per day on additional revenues from oil sales since the beginning of the conflict in the Middle East, which makes Russia probably the biggest beneficiary of this conflict. So also in this context, it's not the time to relax sanctions on Russia. Jorge.
Yes, Paula, on this as well, because I understand your position that you repeated actually yesterday, but the issue here is also of trust, because there was a G7 statement from all the leaders saying quite clearly that the sanctions will remain in place against Russia, and this statement was also signed obviously by President Donald Trump himself as a G7 member. And 2 days after the statement, we have this decision from the United States. So the question is, can you still trust the United States? And do you think the United States is actively benefiting Russia with its actions? Thank you.
Listen, Jorge, we stay committed to what we have said in the G7. And in terms of benefits, as said, clearly, at the moment, Russia is benefiting from the sale of its oil in the current situation. David?
Hi, David Abiyago from Argus Media. Can you just really clearly, simply spell out what that means in terms of supplying Russian oil under this waiver within EU jurisdiction? That is totally ruled out. How if an EU supplier uses a tanker that's supplying elsewhere globally under this waiver, what happens to that tanker? Thanks.
Thanks, David. I think you're getting into a whole lot of hypotheticals at the moment. And then there's an aspect of your question which I think probably is more pertinent for our counterparts in the U.S. We always say, and we'll continue not to speculate on hypothetical scenarios.
Andy.
Yeah, it's a follow-up on the same theme. I don't think it's hypothetical. If I'm a European company or I'm a European country, I want to know what I should do. Do I follow US rules?
The U.S. has said they have put something in place which is limited to vessels that are already at sea. So I would take the U.S. at their word. And then we remain, as always, our oil price cap and all of our sanctions remain in place.
Our sanctions remain in place and the respective enforcement remains in place. David.
Yes, thank you, Paola. It's more for you, I guess. Will President von der Leyen raise directly the issue with President Trump, or will other members of the Commission raise the issue with Scott Bessent or in other, let's say, low level of official contacts? I know that you are constantly in contact with the US, so are you going to raise this problem with them directly? Thank you.
Thank you, David. Indeed, there are several fora in which this issue could be raised. One is the G7 in its various formations. One where very often the sanctions are discussed there's a dedicated formation on the sanctions and the financing ministers. So there are indeed various fora where the issue could be raised. I can't tell you now exactly when and where, but our position is also pretty well known and has been made very explicit as recently as this week at the video conference at leaders level of the G7. Which brings us to the question on the Iranian sanctions, where, I don't know, Siobhan, if you have anything else to say there, but in any case, I guess it's the same. We are enforcing our sanctions against Iran, and that remains in place.